KV-1 with L-11 gun is the first heavy tank available in Soviet tank tree. This thing will let you split responsibilities. Stalinium armor will do everything to protect you, while you will have to take care of enemies. And that might be difficult because there is a reason why so protected tank is positioned so low in battle rating system at 3.7. If usually tanks in War Thunder are balanced by principle the more armor you have the less you can penetrate yourself, this tank is an extreme case, as even the medium tanks could be a problem. Armor is something you expect heavy tank to have, and this thing has a lot of it. Frontal hull armor is 75mm thick and slightly angled. Side armor is straight but has the same thickness. That allows you to stand at around 40 degrees angle and be immune to almost any shell at your battle rating. Turret has the same thickness as well, and gun's mantlet even reaches 90mm. But the problem is that you cannot angle it all the time, so when you aim at your enemy, it's much easier for your attacker to penetrate your turret. Because of that, anytime when you are not shooting, it's recommended to turn your turret sideways as well to maximize your turret's protection during your reloads. Even the back of the vehicle is protected by plates of similar thickness, so don't be surprised when you start to ricochet projectiles shot by enemies who flanked you. Your turret rotation is only 12 degrees per second, which is twice slower than most of other tanks you will meet. That also means that it's easy for fast enemies to get behind you quickly and keep driving around, and this way stay away from your gun as you cannot rotate turret fast enough. But instead you get slightly more guns depression of -7 degrees, which is 2 degrees more than what most Soviet tanks can reach. It's still not enough to play hull down comfortably, but will let you hide at least part of your tank or shoot sooner when rushing enemies that are hiding behind hill. Of course, you don't need to rush blindly and can alternatively look for a way around. But maneuvering around the battlefield is not what the tank with such armor is designed for. Maximum speed is 34 km per hour. It's slow, but the lack of speed is partially compensated by powerful engine that accelerates vehicle pretty fast when traveling in a straight line. But if you make a slightest turn, that will drop your speed significantly. On the other hand, if you still have some momentum before turning, that allows you to turn faster. The tank has 5 comrades inside, and you will rarely be one-shotted for 2 reasons. First reason is space. 2 crew members are sitting in a hull and quite far from people in turret. And second reason, whenever someone hits you, that would be a second shot, because comrades already drunk one shot before the battle. Additionally, anyone who tries to penetrate you might switch to more penetrating shells like APCR by sacrificing post-penetration effect, and it might take some time to destroy your tank when using such shells. Your reload time is 7.1 seconds. If the tank is quite slow overall, the reload is an exception. But that doesn't mean that you can kill opponents quickly and easily, because your shells have the least penetration of almost anyone you'll see in a battle. And despite there are 4 ammunition options to choose from, as usually in War Thunder, not all of them are equally good. Shrapnel shell and high explosive will be useless because of very little penetration. Someone might point out that high explosive shell could be used against trucks, but in reality, because most of such trucks are in Soviet tech tree, you will rarely see similar opponents in realistic battles. While APHE and solid armor-piercing shells can penetrate more than very little, it is not impressive as well. Penetration and overall sluggishness are the biggest downsides of this tank. The most penetrating shell is solid armor piercing. The maximum it can go through are 92mm at close range or 70mm at 1 km. That will do well for armor that is not angled, but it doesn't offer good post-penetration damage, especially considering the quantity of all low-tier tanks you will meet who have weak armor, and you cannot make a lot of spalling when hitting thin armor. And sometimes those who are least protected carry the best guns that are most dangerous to you. So when using AP shell, it will take more time to kill enemies, and the longer they are alive, the more time they have to find a weak spot in your armor. So if you are a real soul of a tanker, you might load an old and time-tested APHE shell with 150 grams of TNT inside. And because of that explosive amount and only 10mm fuse sensitivity, it can be used as a universal shell that can act pretty much the same as high explosive projectile against unarmored vehicles. This way you don't need to fill your armor racks with ammunition type you will almost never use. And most importantly, having universal shell already loaded saves you reload time. And if opponent's vehicle is so lightly armored that it doesn't activate shell's fuse, you can always kill it using low caliber coaxial machine gun. APHE projectile, despite great damage, has a very big issue. First, you have to penetrate enemy's armor. And that is not easy to do because it has only 60mm of penetration at 1 km range or 77 point blank. And using these shells will feel like your opponent is KV-1 as well. Of course, if you face a light tank, penetration doesn't matter too much and you will get rid of them quickly. Since both of these shells have its own strengths and weaknesses, best option is to carry both AP and APHE. Depending on situation, you might need more damage to kill opponents quickly, or penetration if you need more reliable penetration and situation allows you to allocate more time to shoot more shells at the same enemy. If you want to follow a general rule of what shell type is better to load before the battle, when you don't know what you will face, you can use AP shells if map is bigger and you are shooting distant targets, and APHE when there are a lot of cover and any moment tanks can appear right in front of you. You should also take a look at battle rating at the beginning of a match, because this tank is very sensitive to being over-tiered or under-tiered. If enemies are stronger, your armor won't help and you will have hard time with low penetrating shells. But when you are the top vehicle, APHEs will be enough for any opponent, and stellinium on your tank will make you feel indestructible. The muzzle velocity of all shells is only slightly more than 600 meters per second. That's a little bit too slow and might make it difficult to hit distant targets, but there will be a lot of tanks with similar muzzle velocities, you won't feel very different from them. And because of small battle rating, you will mostly play on small maps and will not see a lot of long-range shooting anyway. That also makes tanks' maximum speed less important, since there is no need to travel big distances. Just like enemies who need to learn your weak spots, you will have to learn weak spots of your enemies. Because of very small penetration, even medium tanks will be able to resist your shells. And if others only need to learn weak spots for a couple of heavy tanks to play more or less effectively, KV-1 requires you to learn armor of all medium tanks as well. This way, despite being very low in battle rating system and being available for anyone who just starts to play War Thunder, vehicle already requires player to have knowledge of other tanks. In arcade, just like any other heavy tank, you feel much faster, but at the same time, because everyone plays more armored vehicles, your low penetration becomes even bigger issue. Being faster doesn't mean that you can rush forward and be indestructible. Enemies are faster too, and you will be easily surrounded if you are alone. And even if your survivability is good, it doesn't mean that you will be able to defend yourself if your gun is broken. No matter how many shots you can resist or survive, armor won't help you if there are no friendlies around. If long-range engagements will be safer for you, The same applies to your enemies, because how much penetration is lost because of distance. And that works the other way around. At close ranges, aiming cross will help both you and your enemies to find weak spots in each other's armor, making close range engagements very short. The tank left an impression of protected enough to push forward with allies without fear to be destroyed instantly. That is good when everything goes according to plan and you can take your time to move from cover to cover until enemy's respawn is reached. And because it feels best during slow and predictable game, any unpredicted situation can be challenging. That mostly happens in locations with very limited space, like city streets, where flanking attacks happen often and heavy tanks don't have enough space and time to react to the attacker. That results in helplessly watching how enemies send shell after shell at your tank, while all you can do is slowly rotate your turret and hope to survive long enough until you could shoot them back. Nevertheless, if you can position yourself well and have someone to cover your back, KV-1 can be one of the hardest nuts to crack.